Hi, I'm Martin,
And I'm Libby.
and we're blessed to be members of Chapin UMC. We started attending Chapin UMC online roughly a year ago. We were doing it from Libby's hospital bed at the Prisma Heart Hospital.
And so the reason that we were there is because I had a kidney stone that quickly turned into a severe sepsis. I've had this kidney stone for quite some time, and it was known it was there, and it decided to start moving one day, and I became very septic, as I said, and moved from Prisma Baptist to Prisma Richland, and had some issues with multi-organ failure, which I do not remember any of.
Well, yeah, as Libby said, the sepsis caused multi-organ failure. Basically, every organ failed, and so they just sort of did a CT scan of the neuro side of things. They discovered that she had dissected arteries on either side as well. It was just a laundry list of really, really, really bad news. I was told by multiple people there that I might as well face up to it and expect the worst as far as Libby was concerned. And there was a lady there who'd been on duty when Libby went in. Her name was Michelle O'Hara, and she happened to be someone that had worked with Libby for 20 years. And she said to me, she said,
Great friend.
She said, so what do you think, Martin, like as the future goes? I said, well, if we come out of this and Libby's just in a wheelchair and the only thing that happens is that she's able to see a sunrise and smile, I said, I'm good with that. She said, right, then it's full court press. We're just gonna she said, don't listen to what anybody says. We're just gonna go full court press. And so over the next 14 days were pretty crucial. You can only have an impeller in your heart for about 7 days, and then they have to take it out. And so then the deadline was, well, 7 days, will Libby's heart actually function after they remove the impeller or not? And it was during the first couple of days that I really started praying. And it wasn't something that I'd been accustomed to because I hadn't been attending church. I wasn't praying regularly about anything, but I certainly started praying regularly about Libby's situation. First prayer answered, her heart did take over the burden and continue. The next hurdle quickly was reached at roughly day 14 because Libby was intubated. She had a breathing tube because her lungs hadn't been working. At day 14 they have to decide whether to cut a hole in your throat and make it more permanent, or you get extubated. That is, they take the tube out at day 14. That's if they think you're going to breathe by yourself. They came in the morning and did the test. You're supposed to be able to do it for a couple of minutes for them to take that out. Failed miserably after 20 seconds. I said to the respiratory therapist, come back this afternoon. We're gonna have a little talk here. So Libby was in her coma still, and I had a long chat with Libby. And
believe it or not, I could actually hear.
And we know now that she could actually hear what I was saying.
What the nurses were saying.
And so had a long discussion with her about it, prayed a lot about it. The guys came back in the afternoon, respiratory therapist, and one of them was a little more senior than the other, and so he said, hang on, let me have a go at this. And he did the measurements, and he said, yeah, I'm getting breathing, I'm getting blowback. They extubated Libby, and she breathed, and so she was breathing under her own sort of activity. After that, Libby's sepsis, it was an infection. This infection was still going wild in her body. She was being administered antibiotics that ordinary doctors were not allowed to administer. It had to come from infectious diseases. They were the only guys who could sanction this stuff. So they were giving her sort of elephant strength antibiotics, but her white blood cell count was still climbing all the time. her white blood cell count was about 110. That doesn't mean anything to anyone unless you know that, between like 4.5 and like 9 is a normal reading for a normal person. She was at 110, and they were desperately worried about it. So I had a discussion with Libby as well in her coma. I said, listen, we need to talk to your white blood cells here. They think they're doing the right thing, but really we've got this under control with the medications. Your guys are trying to knock it out the park, and they don't need to do it. We've got to back this up. And I said, I tell you what, we need to pray to get your numbers down to 91. And I said a specific number. They did blood tests every day at midnight for that type of thing. The results came out about 2 a.m. and I would actually have Michelle O'Hara phone me with all the results at 2 a.m. because she knew I wouldn't sleep unless I knew them. And so anyway, the white blood cell count came back at 91. Not lower this, that came at 91. So I said, well, this is good. I had another discussion and prayer with Libby and said, I think we need to, aim lower. And again, I named another number. I did this 2 more times. I named a number. The last number I named was 55. The blood test came out at exactly 55. So if anyone ever tells you that prayer doesn't work, let me tell you, there's no one that can control their white blood cell number and get it down to a specific number. But anyway, that happened, and then from then on, I didn't name any specific numbers. The trend just kept on going down.
So, from my perspective, I grew up as a young child in church. As I got out of high school, I kind of moved away from that. I still had a foundation in God, and I would read my Bible on my own and try to, find my way. But it was not the same as being in church, and it was not until all of this happened to me personally that, as I'm lying in the hospital, as Martin said, in my coma. Well, the coma is a medically induced coma. You get lots of drugs that keep you under, fentanyl and ketamine specifically, which those drugs cause some crazy dreams, let me tell you. But I could hear everything that was going on at that time. I could hear the doctors talking in the room with Martin, and they were talking at one point of making me a DNR, which is do not resuscitate. And I'm thinking in my head, oh my goodness, you can't make me a DNR. I am not ready for that. But I really was on death's door at that point. So even in my little coma, I knew that things, had to change. And I was praying in my coma, God, please look after me. And Martin helped facilitate that with his prayers and talking to me about it as well. Just telling me, you've got to focus on these things and you've got to pray about these, because I'm praying about these things, and not just the blood cell counts. As he said, I had some issues with my brain as far as some bleeding, and my carotid arteries had some dissection, which means they're kind of leaky, which is not a good thing. So we prayed a lot about that, and we went back in and had a scan later on. All of that had disappeared. It was gone. There was nothing there. No bleeding, no dissection of the carotids. That doesn't just go away. That was a true miracle, and I'm here because of that. So, as I'm getting better and I'm extubated and able to do more and more things in the hospital, I just renewed my faith at that point.
The answered prayers that we got while Libby was in hospital, and absolute miracles that occurred, and we've named a couple. I could name more for you as well. That really affected the way that I thought of things. I recall that there was a chaplain intern in the hospital. The guy's name was Camille, and I distinctly remember him talking to the neuro doctors one day, because they were saying to him, look, I don't think this guy understands. I think you really need to like take him aside and talk to him. And Camille looked at these doctors and said, you know, actually, he's the only guy that understands. He said, trust me, he understands fully. And, you know, I that registered with me that, you know, he understood what I was doing. I wasn't being naive. I was believing that we were going to see these changes, and we saw them. Libby spent 99 days in the heart hospital. She just missed her century by one day. And during that time, you know, the other organs, you know, gradually came back to working, but, you know, there was a lot of prayer about each one. I mean, you know, Libby was on full dialysis. Her kidneys weren't working at all. We prayed about that, and it's funny to be praying for someone to pee, but that's what we were doing. And we were all ecstatic when it happened. And so, you know, one by one, Libby's organs came back. And then, after that, we saw the damage that some of the medications had done, because when you have sepsis, your blood pressure drops dramatically. And so what they're concentrating on is getting your blood pressure up. So they give you drugs which actually constrict the blood flow to your extremities. That happened, and through the lack of blood flow to Libby's extremities, basically her hands and feet died. You know, it's not a fun thing to look at. I mean, they literally turned black and died. And Libby became a quad amputee. Just as Libby was having to be discharged from hospital, they couldn't discharge her because obviously she was completely wheelchair bound, and then she had a safe environment at home to go back to. A safe environment meant having like a wheelchair ramp and all the rest of it. And the decision to want to discharge her from hospital came very suddenly. So I was running around like a mad thing, looking for ramps. But at the same time, I'd realized that we'd had this series of miracles that had happened to get us to the point that she was being discharged. And I felt that I had to say thank you properly, in inverted commas. So I thought, well, you know, I'll reach out to a local church. As a child, I'd been to a Methodist church when I was 8 years old. I thought, well, let me have a look and see where our local Methodist church is. And lo and behold, it was roughly 3 minutes drive away. And so I went onto the website, and there was a contact portal. So I wrote into the contact portal, you know, to make contact. And I'm a bit embarrassed about it, because I think I started off by saying that I don't like churches. I was trying to be honest. And, you know, I had this view of churches. And anyway, so I wrote this like paragraph or whatever to contact the church. You actually have it?
I have it.
Oh no, that's embarrassing.
I don't really like churches, although it's many years since I've been to one.
See, I knew I'd said that. That's embarrassing. Fortunately for me, it ended up in Jonathan's inbox, and he reached out to me and said, "Hey, you know, could we have coffee together?" I said, "Yeah, absolutely, but you know, it have to be like before I go to see Libby at the hospital." So I met Jonathan early one morning, coffee shop, and I was quite distracted because I was waiting for phone calls from these ramp guys. And he said, "What are you busy with?" I said, "Well, I'm trying to organize like a ramp for her because she's being discharged. And I'm sorry, I'm distracted and what have you." And Jonathan said to me, he said, "We do ramps." Now we were like 3 sips into our coffee. I said to him, like, "You've known me for like 2 minutes and 32 seconds. What do you mean we do ramps?" He said, "We do ramps. You know, the church has a mission that does ramps." I said, "Oh, okay." He said, "I'll get them to be in contact with you." I said to him, "Yeah, I've got to be careful because like I've recently lost my job." And he said, but there's no cost involved with this. I was like, huh? He's like, it's a mission. He said, I'll get them to contact you. Well, 10 days later, there was a ramp at our house from from John Nesbitt's mission and his crew. And like I said, I didn't know anybody from a bar of soap at that stage. It was like I was just stunned.
That's pretty much how things carried on a little while. I had the amputations done. I was waiting for healing to occur so I could be fitted for prosthetics. And in the meantime, we did have lots of visits from Mike Lawhead. He was helping do dressing changes because I did have some wounds and so forth. So, we got to know him quite well. And
we discovered that Libby needed people to come and change her dressings. She's been a nurse for 36 years. We put it on Facebook thinking like some of the hundreds of people that she's worked with would come and help her, and not one person responded. And Jonathan come to visit us at the house, and we were talking about that, and it was another like, oh, we've got a mission for that. It's like, what? Yeah, we've got a medical mission headed up by Mike Lawhead. I'll get him to contact you. And Mike is now my baptism brother.
He's been such a blessing to us. So one day he's there, and he's like watching me in the wheelchair, and he's like, you could get into church easily with your wheelchair. We've got ways for you to get in there. I said, oh, that would be fantastic. So we were able at that point to start attending in persons in my wheelchair, and it was so much of a blessing to us to get in.
We were lucky enough to be helped by a small group. There were, when Libby says she got her prosthetics, she didn't just get them. What happened at a particular point in time, there was going to be an issue with insurance. I came to one of my favorite little spots here. I like to use the little chapel here. I came to the chapel. I prayed about it. The next day, Prisma Health reached out to her and said that they were changing their policy as regards prosthetics from suppliers in Colombia. Now, large organizations don't do that. They don't move that fast. It doesn't happen the next day. They don't make overall policy decisions. They did it. They changed it, and so basically the insurance was changed so that she was able to get those prosthetics. Once she learned to use those prosthetics, we were like, well, perhaps she can now use a toilet properly. It's like, well, we'll have to get one of those bidet things. They cost a fortune, but
yes,
some people had done like a benefit for us. It's like, let's have a look and see if there's any money left from the benefit or whatever. That was a Thursday morning. Thursday evening, we got a call from Laurie Cartmel, who's one of the small groups here, and she said, hey guys, just phoning to let you know I'm going away on vacation tomorrow, but before I go, what I wanted you to know was our small group actually had a meeting, and we decided that we're going to have like John Nesbitt's group change your bathroom so that it's ADA compliant for Libby, and so it'll have like a bidet in and that type of thing. That was like within 24 hours of when we'd been speaking about it as to like, what are we going to do about it? So I've learned since the 22nd of June last year, when Libby went into hospital, that there is no such thing as a coincidence. They don't exist. And now even when I look back in my life as to when I wasn't in church and I wasn't walking with God, and I look at things that happened in my life at certain times, I understand now that those weren't coincidences either. I just wasn't bright enough to know it at the time. And so it's made an absolute huge difference to us, to me, how I view things, how I view adversity.
Chapin has been, so supportive of us, and I'm overwhelmed, honestly, with everything that people have brought to us. The church is a family, and we feel that. Even though we haven't been here very long, we do appreciate it so much. But I'm sorry. But I did get my prosthetics for my legs, and was able to learn to walk. And I have a therapist named Katie Blocker, who is an attendee of Chapin United Methodist as well. So she has also been a fantastic person and blessing to me personally. And just learning how to walk, learning to build up my confidence to get around and not feel like everybody's staring at me. That was a big hurdle for me. So, the first time I was able to walk into church with my prosthetics on was a huge deal. And I just felt so comfortable. Everyone just, good morning, and we're so glad you're here, and do you need anything? It was just every time we've been in church. So we decided, yes, we definitely want to become members of the church and give back to the church, so that we can hopefully do some service. And at some point, as soon as I can do a little bit more. So the other thing that has happened to us, not just to me, unfortunately, Martin, and during this time, had lost quite a bit of weight. If you'd seen Martin previously, you would not recognize him now. He was probably about 210. Now I think he weighs about
220, actually.
Okay, 220, sorry. But now he weighs about 165, so, that's a huge difference in weight. So we thought at first it was stress from my ordeal. And we asked our nurse practitioner that we see regularly to please, keep an eye on this. Well, he was diagnosed as a diabetic. So we thought, okay, let's get this under control, see if that will help things, but he still continued to lose weight, and finally was able to get a scan done that showed that he does have stage 4 pancreatic cancer. He's had some lesions in the liver, which automatically makes you a stage 4. So he is being treated for that as we speak. And people ask me all the time, why aren't you angry about this? Because we know that God did not do this to us. God did not make me ill. It was a kidney stone that made me ill. God did not make Martin ill. It was a pancreatic tumor that made him ill. And we know that those things are things that we can overcome with God's help and faith in him. So we just pray every day that these things will go away, and we'll be able to live our lives together.
And we get an awful lot of help still from Chapin UMC. I mean, on my chemo weekend, the small group, Laurie Cartmel, Katie Blocker, Brandy, and Sarah Chapman, they bring us food on that Saturday, because I can't get out of bed when I'm flattened by chemo. I can get out for a few minutes, so I get out, take whatever delicious item they've put in our fridge and heat it up for us to eat.
Yes.
And that's actually something, though, that, when I first contacted Jonathan and I said I didn't like churches, so now I know that a church isn't a building. A church is made up of people, and Chapin UMC, it's Jody, John, Jonathan, and it's people in the small group that I've mentioned. It's John Nesbitt and his mission. It's not a building, it's a family. And if you've been attending Chapin UMC and you're not a member, man, these are such warm-hearted people. Join, because you can also make a difference in someone else's life the way that these people have made a difference in our lives. And it's just been an absolute blessing.